And we are recording. All right, we got Rick on the call. Welcome to REI 101. I am your friend, Austin from Houston, and this is my good friend, Alberto. How are you today, Albert?
Doing well, man. As always, just thankful for a new week, fresh set of days to get things done.
Amen. I'm thankful for the week, for the day. We get closer and closer every moment. So, yes, gratitude. And I'm glad you brought up gratitude because that's a huge part of what we're going to be discussing today. Richard jumped on the call. He reminded me of a quote that I read from Brandon Beard, and it's the three stages of wealth, of being rich.
This is great.
The first stage of being rich, of getting rich, is number one, you mow your own lawn. And then stage two, you build significant wealth, and then you hire someone to mow your own lawn.
I'm on stage two.
And then when you reach the apex of financial freedom, stage three, you mow your own lawn.
Okay. Well,
So
I'm in the middle, so I'm halfway there.
you're halfway there. So yeah. Now,
So the backstory, the joke to it is that Austin and I can see each other's house, right, where we live, and
Yeah.
he always makes fun of me for mowing my own lawn. And I've been telling him for years, it's like, hey, dude, when you get successful enough, you'll be out here mowing too. You won't have to worry about making 400 calls a day and working from sunup to sundown. So that's the backstory of the joke.
I didn't understand that until recently.
I get it now with the explanation. Yeah, I needed that explanation. It's basically now you have the time and boredom. Once you reach the apex, I guess I'll go mow my lawn.
Yeah, maybe it's a mindset. Maybe we need to start. Hal says he probably always will. Maybe.
Well, what Richard's doing too is he's habit stacking, right? Is he doesn't like mowing his lawn, but he likes exercising, right? And staying
Mhm.
in shape. So he's like, you know what? I'm gonna go mow my lawn
Oh, he was.
and I'm gonna have a push mower, like screw the self-propelled thing, right? And I'm gonna get my workout in at the same time.
I've never seen anybody mow their lawn wearing a rucksack. That was that was that was
It's
Richard.
fun. Yeah, it's funny how well you two guys know me, right? Like you totally nailed it, Alberto, even though you hadn't seen it, right? Like I have the push mower and I wear the rucksack. So I'm like, this is my cardio for the day.
Yeah.
And all the neighbors are outside just like kind of staring like, who
Oh
is
yeah,
this?
I get a bunch
No,
of looks. That's for sure.
it's all good. It's all
You
good.
do like just one more question before we can move on. You do wear a shirt, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Sometimes.
yes. Yeah.
Sometimes. All right. So, how does a millionaire real estate investor or any type of business, the principles we're going to talk about today, they're not solely applicable only to real estate investors, which they certainly are, but these are all business owners, which most people are in. Almost everybody owns some type of business, whether you're in a leadership role in your company or you own real estate, other people work for you, or you have a family. All of us on the call, we all have families. We're in leadership roles, and everybody on this call is an influencer. I think everybody I know that I see. So, just a quick reminder of the purpose of why we do this call. We're here to build a foundation of smart real estate investing. We're here to educate, empower, and we're also here to have a good conversation. So we're always open to a little debate in the real estate investing world. And what we're going to be doing today is we're pulling the seven ways that a millionaire real estate investor thinks, straight from the Blue book by Gary Keller. And we're just going to get into it. Albert, my co-host, y'all make sure you say hi to him. Make sure you follow him. And Saturday, if you have any time, come out with us. We're going to be in Seabrook, all over Seabrook. Albert's going to run 50 miles just for fun. So we're going to go make fun of him and drink beer while he's running. So
Yeah.
sound fun?
Yeah. Well,
You
it's gonna
feel
be fun for you guys.
you feeling good about it?
Yeah, I mean, I feel good. Got that long run in last weekend, and I got some more runs in since then. I'll get some shorter runs in this week just to stay loose. No really hard workouts, but I'll be back at the gym too, just some light workouts. Not trying to get sore, but I'm looking forward to it. I've never run that far, that long out at the Seabrook trails, so it's pretty flat. It's kind of reminds me of Brazos Bend State Park, except Brazos Bend had a little bit more trees. So I'm just praying for an overcast day. I don't think I'm gonna get it, but it'll be fun to every time I come back to the parking lot. Maybe there's a new friend there. Julia will be there, of course, with the dogs, hanging out. So talking me out of quitting. So
Well, I will definitely be there. All
awesome.
right, so let's get in it. The 7 ways a millionaire real estate investor think. Albert, you want to start us off today?
Yeah, I mean, this applies really, like you mentioned before, to entrepreneurs, to let's say you're, whoever's watching this, you're thinking about starting a family, right? Because they may not be a business owner, but one of the things that we teach, in our mentorship program, the very first things we talk about is mindset and having a big why.
Having
I
a
think
big why.
that if, as it pertains to real estate or business, if you're going into it and money's the only reason why, then it's highly likely that at the first, onset of difficulty or challenges, you're probably going to give up. You're probably going to quit,
Yeah,
because that's just not a big enough why. So having that, we're encouraged to really reflect and understand why we're choosing to invest in real estate, why we're choosing to start this company, whatever it might be, or why are you choosing to start a family, whatever it might be, right? Is do you have a big enough why?
that's right. That's right. So your big why can be different depending on different people where you are in what stage of life you're in, and this can definitely change over time.
Mhm.
But I think for most people, it's some type of legacy. I think for most people, it has a lot more to do with other people rather than themselves. I think for most people, that this has to do with freedom. Whether it be financial freedom or just the having the freedom to do things with your family and friends that being busy just keeps us from doing, like running 50 miles for fun. That's just being able to do those kinds of things. I think is just one of the greatest joys of life. And when we're spinning our wheels and putting out fires constantly, right, that keeps us from doing that. So if you're on the call, this is what we want to do. We want you to interact. You can come off your mic, but you can also leave a message in the chat. What is your big why? What gets you up in the morning? What gets you going? What is the reason you endure uncomfortable situations? But we've got to keep it in perspective, and I think that's why that big why is so critical because
Yeah.
it just
I'll
helps.
share mine.
Yes.
I'll get people started. I think for me, kind of growing up the way that I grew up, I just really wanted to change the way my family tree was where it came from and where it was heading, you know. And so my parents, they just worked until they just couldn't work anymore. I mean, that was the
Hmm.
generation that they grew up in. Not a lot of savings, not really no retirement, just depending on Social
Hmm.
Security. My dad has a pension plan, thank God. But they just worked until they just couldn't work anymore, and just
Hmm.
depending on, the Social Security and just the meager things that they put together, and we help along the way as much as we can. But for me, for my kids and the generations after me, is I wanted to show them there's a different way. There's a different way you can do this. You don't have to depend on that 9 to 5 job or that 401k, or, what if you don't have those things, or what if it's not enough,
That's right.
right? So investing in real assets like real estate and building businesses, building teams, building things that are going to outlast me is providing an example. Whether or not they choose to invest in real estate as they mature, like they're already adults as well. We've
Hmm.
talked about it, but whether they decide to do it, that'll be their decision. But they'll have something left for them and for future generations once we're gone. So,
My big Y just texted me. My 21-year-old daughter just for some reason said, "I love you. You're so cool." And I have no idea where that came from. She must be on the call. I'm not sure, but just those random texts, that's my big why right there.
yeah.
That's the whole reason for this. So number two, so number one's think powered by a big why. Number two is think big goals, big models, and big habits.
Mhm.
Albert, you want to speak into that?
Sure. And I'm basing this just really off of my personal experience, with real estate and the fact that we've only been in real estate. We closed on our first deal in
Today.
October of 2020.
Richard jumped on the call. He reminded me of a quote that I read from Brandon Beard, and it's the three stages of. That was weird.
Okay. Are we back?
Yeah, we're back.
Okay.
That was the Facebook broadcast.
Okay. That was weird because you were talking, but your lips weren't moving. I was like, what is going on? Am I hearing things? Is he like talking to me through ESP or what? Like, it's weird.
So
Yeah.
we started streaming to Facebook, and people are commenting on Facebook, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything. And
Oh,
so next time, I'll mute Facebook.
okay. All right. So we're thinking big goals, big models, big habits.
Yes.
So, we closed on our first deal in October 2020. So
Hmm.
like about 5 years ago. And at that time, I never really believed or dreamed that we would own 10 rental properties, 3 million in real estate, doing, huge flips and wholesale deals and running short-term rentals, managing long-term rentals, have a property management company, like all these things,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And I didn't really set out with that big goal in mind. But I was creating big habits and taking
Yeah.
like this massive, imperfect daily action, doing something daily, and it didn't have to be perfect, right? So those were the things that I set in
But
place at the
you were
beginning.
tracking your activity. You were
Yeah,
tracking
definitely.
your habits, and as you began building momentum,
Mhm.
then things started opening up. Like possibilities started revealing themselves to you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to the point now where we're building homes. We have lots to build 4 more homes in the next 12 months.
Hmm.
One's a duplex, 3 single-family homes, and thinking even bigger, right? That's retiring Julia from her job at NASA within the next 1 to 3 years. I was talking to a really good friend this morning. I said 3 years. He goes, "You need to do it in 1 year.
Yeah.
If you give yourself 3 years, it's going to take you 3 years."
Yeah.
So he said, give yourself 1 year. And then if you make it, awesome. You did it faster. If you don't, okay, keep trying. Right. So I'm shifting. That's that big goal, right? That big goal and the big habits of putting in the work and accumulating assets, which
Yeah.
we're going to talk about here a little bit later too. So,
So you have to have a tool. Um, so putting it on paper, putting it on somewhere where you can see it. I have a score tracker on my desk that I keep an eye on. So that's one. We use a tool called the 411. It's your priorities, goals, and strategies, and just updating that. You can't just write a goal to become a millionaire by age 40. You just can't, because what you have to do is you have to break that down into bite-sized pieces. From those bite-sized pieces, you create the habits, the activities, you identify the actions that you must take on a daily basis. So it's basically developing a routine, just like you were doing, building habits, building daily activities, writing it down, then putting it in your calendar, because your calendar is going to reflect your values. Your schedule will reflect what your goals truly are.
Hmm.
And then sticking to that. And then over time, you start to not only hit your goals, but you also, Albert, you're the perfect example. You start to see that there's more possible than you even realize when you commit to the daily activities necessary to be successful and hit those numbers, right?
Yeah, and then you mentioned two things, right? Daily activities and looking at your schedule and your calendar, right?
Hmm.
I think Dave Ramsey said something like this is show me your bank account and I'll tell you what matters to you
Yeah.
in your life, right? So show me your calendar and I'll tell you the same thing. What are your goals? What matters to you? So I live and die like through my calendar.
Yeah.
I'm time blocking certain tasks that I need to take care of, and a lot of those tasks get me closer to those bigger goals, you know. I've got this journal. It's called the 5 minute journal. Super
Hmm.
easy. One of the things that I first do first thing in the morning. It starts with gratitude, but it also talks about like what are three things that are going to make today great. And there's like an affirmation kind of section, right,
Yeah.
where you can kind of put what some of those big goals and big dreams are. But seeing it every single day
Yeah.
is a constant reminder of where I'm headed or where I want to go. And all these other daily things that are in my calendar, those are all the building blocks or the steps to get me there. Yeah,
So number one, write it down. I would say absolutely write it
absolutely.
down. Your big why and your goals have to match your big why. Your goals are they feed into your big why. So number three, what do we have for number three, Albert?
Money matters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is pretty critical because obviously we can't grow a business if we don't have surplus of finances. So we're talking about cash flow, reserves, saving money, understanding financing bases.
Mhm.
So you can leave a poll. How do you track your finances? Do you track your net worth? How often do you track your net worth? I want to hear from everyone. One of the things that changed my life, I guess it's been about 6 years. I began tracking my net worth. I actually have a video on how I do this. It's just a simple spreadsheet. But if you're on my YouTube channel at Austin from Houston 12, I did create a video about the 4-in-1. That's goal setting and net worth tracker and how I do that. Pretty simple. So tracking your net worth. We talk about cash flow. So for every project and business that we're running, we need to have a balance sheet and a profit and loss statement. If you don't know what those two tools are and you're running a business, I would suggest that you write those terms down big and tape them on your wall, put them on your word wall. So we need to understand, and we've talked about this quite a bit. And in fact, in October, when we do our deal review, the first Monday, I'd like to look at more profit and loss statements for some cash flowing properties, but just tracking those numbers. So house uses every dollar plus. Great tool, especially for personal finances. I hear a lot about that.
Mhm.
Another tool a lot of people are using now since Mint just died. I don't know what that was about, but Monarch seems to be a very effective tool as well.
Okay.
A lot of banks now, online banks, they have a lot of the tools in the banking system, but the uh, the thing is taking a look at your money, um, which reminds me, I'm missing some money. Somebody owes me money.
It's not me.
It's not, well, no. Uh, I just remembered in my bank statement there was a debit from somebody that should not have debited me. Anyways, so yeah, keeping an eye on that because people will take money from us because everybody has our credit card these days. So
Yeah, yeah.
y-
I just want to chime in a little bit. I really like what Hal said, this every dollar plus and really keeping, I think being on the same page, with your spouse, your significant other, that's crucial, because you could be pulling like a tug of war if you're not on the same page, right? It just makes more sense if you're both pushing the load, right, or pulling the load together,
mhm,
whatever it is. And I was blessed with a wife that loves spreadsheets. So
mhm.
she's our CFO, and we have probably every other week we'll have like a budget meeting, right? Where
Hmm.
she goes, we overall the expenses. We definitely have one like towards the end of the month to kind of get prepared for the following month. But I'm tracking, you were talking about Mint Mobile. And at the time, there was another company called Personal Capital, and then they got
Hmm.
bought out by this company called Empower. So I use Empower now, or I've been using them for since it was Personal Capital to track my net worth. Right, I can put all of our properties in there. I can put like their appraised values in there. It kind of helps with my net worth.
Hmm.
And then we also like use their financial advisory
Did Albert just freeze?
for something like that.
Oh, he's back.
So Empower or Personal Capital, was
Those
them too.
are awesome tools.
So there we
Pen and
go.
paper is a good tool too. You cut out for just a second, but I think you're back.
Yeah, cool.
Okay. Um, but at the end of the day, just being putting in the time. And if you do this every week or so, it really doesn't take a lot of time. Things get complicated when you wait a long time and you don't look at things for 3 months and then find out
Yeah,
some.
both in your personal, finances at home and your business finances.
Yeah.
I mean, we keep those things separate. So I manage that stuff. We have a CPA/bookkeeper, and we work really closely together in QuickBooks to keep track of all that because you mentioned before, having reserves, right? If you're going to build this business or you're going to sustain your business,
Hmm.
is making sure your reserves are shored up appropriately.
Yeah.
In the event that something happens, you need to dip into those. Having that cash flow as well. People will often ask me, Austin, what's the first thing I need to do if I want to start investing in real estate? And, we talked about mindset earlier. The other thing is having your financial house in order,
Yeah.
and I just encourage them, if you have a bunch of credit card debt and revolving type debt, high interest debt, pay that stuff off
Yeah.
because stressing over that while you're trying to build a business as well, you get tempted, especially if you start dealing with tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in this business. And now you've got like this large amount of
Yeah.
consumer debt as well. I encourage people get that stuff in order first, learn how to manage that first. And then it's going to be easier to manage your money and potentially other people's money as well when you're running your business.
Anyone in that scenario, I would definitely recommend Dave Ramsey's Baby Steps, take Financial Peace
That's
University.
what we did. Yeah,
But that consumer debt just can really just impair somebody's progress when it comes to wealth building. So,
for sure.
Amber said, I meet with my husband weekly to discuss our businesses. Also, definitely helps staying on top of your business weekly. And it doesn't take a long time if you do it consistently. I did start with the net worth tracker when I first heard you mention. Thanks, man. Lately, I do not look at it often because my consumer debt is higher priority. So the net worth tracker, you don't necessarily need to do it every week. Every month, at least once a quarter. I think once a month is probably ideal. I'm the net worth guy in my house, and Cindy, she just looks like at the income in Alco, which I don't stress about that as much. But as long as my value is increasing, I'm pretty happy. Even if we have a month where, you know, being in real estate, our income is variable. She's an entrepreneur also, but so some months are great, some months are not. But either way, I'm seeing that net worth go up and making good investments. And it's
Right.
a lot easier to do that, not having that consumer debt to kind of hold us back. So,
Well, that's
number
a good
three,
segue. Yeah.
what's
Good
that?
segue into the next one, number four, right? Which is
Yeah,
think net worth.
think net worth. So, yeah, this is a separate point. So, net worth is pretty simple. You need to take all of your assets minus all your debts. That's your net worth. And if you track that consistently, you can make a chart, and it's either going to go up or it's going to go down. And you want it to go up.
That's the goal.
That's the goal, is
Yeah.
to make that number go up.
Yeah.
So
Right. And then, what's the difference, right, between like being rich or being wealthy? What's the difference between those two?
what's the difference between being rich or being wealthy? I think they're kind of both the same thing in a sense, but when I think of rich, I think of stuff. I think material items. I think of having a lot of stuff. Wealthy, I think, is more of a mindset. I think being wealthy is having the time and the freedom. You know, I come from this generation, the tail end of a generation where everyone worked real hard. You know, your parents worked hard, your grandparents, they worked themselves to the bone. And that was one of the most important things to a lot of people when they died. I just want everybody to remember how hard I worked for my family. And that was important. And I felt that way up until probably I was 40. And I realized if the first thing that people remember about me at my funeral is how hard I worked, they're not remembering how much time I spent with them and the memories that we built together. And you can't have quality time with the people you love if you're working your ass off all the time. And so just that kind of mindset shifted in the last 5 years in my world. And so I think wealthy is a mindset. It doesn't necessarily mean having a bunch of stuff and swimming in the gold, but it's having the freedom and the time. And financial freedom is important. You got to have a certain amount of money to be able to just like drop things in and take the kids to Disney World or whatever you want to do with your family. You got to have some financial freedom there. But there's a lot of people out there that have tremendous amounts of income and they're handcuffed to their lifestyle, and I don't think that's the best outcome. And we've met people like that. I've met athletes and celebrities like that are really just bleeding money. And the more money they make, the more money they spend. More money, more problems, right?
Yeah, no, I agree with all that, man. Is you can work yourself to the bone and have a high amount of cash flow, like money coming in, right? Like a high paying job or even like a high producing business.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like that true wealth is that freedom you talked about, the freedom to spend time with your family, spend time with friends, or, let's say you're an entrepreneur,
Hmm.
right? You have the freedom to tell someone no,
Yep.
right? Or, you don't need that particular client or customer, right? You don't have to work with everyone that walks through your door, because you have like this level of wealth and freedom that comes with, hard work, of course, but we're going to talk about how to get there faster next.
Yeah. And so that's a lot about what we're talking about. So just to recap, number one, think powered by a big why. Number two, think big goals, big models, big habits. Number three, think money matters. Number four, think net worth. Y'all hear that, don't y'all?
Yeah.
Somebody's trying to call me. It's all good. I'll call him back later. Number four, think net worth. Number five, Albert. Yes,
Real
sir.
estate. Think real
Real
estate.
estate, thinking real estate. And we could have just called the whole podcast the Think Real Estate podcast, REI 101.
Yeah.
Why is real estate the preferred wealth building vehicle? Let's hear your answer. And then if you have an answer to this and you want to drop that in the chat, why is real estate, yeah, net worth? Charlie Barty on the call. Thanks for being here, brother. Why is real estate the preferred wealth building vehicle?
Well, I mean, for me, I'm not smart enough to invent something like Amazon.com, right? Or to come up with some crazy invention that's just going to make me wealthy, right? Or build this amount of wealth. So real estate to me is the average person's vehicle
Hmm.
to build this generational wealth, right? With the proper systems and processes and people in place, right? And running this business the right way. um, Someone like me who just, yeah, I got my bachelor's degree in IT and used it for 25 years and built a little bit of a nest egg, but definitely wouldn't have been enough if I would have
Right.
just stayed doing that until I was 65 years old, you know? So that's why I think for me it's the preferred wealth building vehicle, real estate, because I could open a restaurant, right? I could open up a taco stand or something like that. People are always going to need food. You think about what people need, right? When you're thinking about an entrepreneur, but we're still in that entrepreneur space. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that
The
taco
other
stand
side
needs
is
somewhere to put the taco stand.
right. I mean, yes, there's real estate there, but there's those two sets of people, right? There's the 9 to 5 person that's just going to work until they're 65, and then you've got entrepreneurs. There's another good book too. I don't know if you've read it before by Robert Kiyosaki called the Cash Flow Quadrant.
Cash flow quadrant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Cash Flow Quadrant is really good. And he talks about that, right? He talks about people that work, people that invest. There's a couple other things too, but you really want to be like the person that invests in businesses.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of where you want to be. You have a business owner as well. But anyway, real estate, that's how we get there.
The three traders, we number one is people that trade their time for money. That's your 9 to 5 people. And we're all there to an extent. We're not all exempt. Maybe Richard is, but number two is those who trade their money for time. And those are entrepreneurs who are paying other people to do stuff for them. And then finally, number three is those who trade their money for more money. Those are investors. And so, real estate right here, why is real estate the preferred wealth building vehicle? Over the long term, yeah, there are ebbs and flows. We are in a little bit of a down market. Babies are crying a lot right now. But over time, real estate has always proven, ever since the absolute beginning of time, real estate has always proven that it is a commodity that will increase in value forever. And no matter what happens in the market, even in the most horrific markets, real estate eventually will come back. So real estate always makes a comeback. Another thing, I think real estate is great because if you buy a property for, $100,000 or $1 million and you put 20% down, every time the value of that asset increases by 5%, you're actually making a 25% return on your money. And that's an appreciation alone. That's not including the cash flow you get from renting it out. So if you're getting another 5% or 10% return on the rental income, that's a 35% eternal rate of return. So when you understand those numbers, you can invest in Amazon and Apple and consistently see those types of returns. And it's almost guaranteed in the real estate world eventually, not right off the bat, but eventually if you hold the properties long enough, real estate is very forgiving and always makes a comeback. So real estate's pretty safe for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, did you talk about like just our ability to control the asset?
That's right.
Right. And that's something that you don't have control over to a certain degree. I mean, you have a voting right, on these publicly traded companies, but you're one in how many million, right? Voting shares or however many shares you have of the company, right? But you don't necessarily have full control over that investment,
Yeah.
right? As opposed to your asset, your house or your multiplex or whatever it is that you've purchased, you have control over it. So I think that is very important as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Number 6, think value, opportunity, and deals. The shift from scarcity to abundance. There are always deals if you know how to look. I found that to be true, right?
100%. Yeah, 100%. I just think that like we learned that in the beginning, and it wasn't really something that we had to learn, to be honest with you. It was just more like there were so many people pouring into us in the beginning of our real estate journey, where it was just natural for us to pour into others and not be jealous or not be, just thinking that, oh man, that person's getting all the deals, right? There are deals out there for everyone, right? And it's not that the slice of the pie gets smaller, the pie just continues to grow, in my opinion. If you're looking in the right place, you know how to look, and you can be creative in funding and structuring and funding these deals,
I always like to say great deals are not found, they are created.
Or created.
There's a lot of deals out there when we look. By the way, I'm doing a call on Tuesdays on Twitch. I'm streaming on Twitch. I'm just a multifamily deep dive. There's a lot of apartment complexes on the market right now that just look like trash deals, But when you put the numbers together, when you can negotiate, you can squeeze some opportunities out of some of those listings that may not make a lot of sense. There's a lot of ways to get in there with creative financing. There's a lot of ways to get in there with um, equity, equity deals, partnering. There's a lot of different ways to do things. A lot of value add opportunities as well. So, you have any stories of creative thinking that really resulted in a deal becoming a lot better than it originally looked like on paper? I've got a few.
Maybe you can go. I mean, we've done some creative type financing deals, some subject to deals where people were just, in some financial trouble with their homes. And they weren't necessarily like home run deals for us.
Hmm.
I think they were more kind of like deals to help with tax, structuring and things like that, like income tax, delays, whatever, depreciation and things like that. Um, I'm more on the creative side when it comes to actually finding people
Hmm.
and getting creative with the conversation, because figuring out what their distress is,
Yeah,
if it's financial, if it's physical distress of the property itself, or they just want to get rid of things, and structuring deals or structuring the conversation, right, where it's a win for everyone and it's
that's
not
right.
just a good deal for me, that's kind of where my superpower is kind of thinking of it that way. But I'm friends and in a bunch of groups that can structure some deals, and where I mean they're getting deals for very little out of pocket, but it's a win for everyone too.
Right. You said it really well. Win-win. I think that a lot of people they forget how powerful it is to understand the motive.
Hmm.
Um, when we enter in a conversation, a negotiation with anybody about anything, the two people in a party can accomplish so much more if they understand each other's motivation. And I think getting to the motivation is key.
Hmm.
It's not always easy to do that. It takes just some relationship connecting, but understanding there. This is how you negotiate with a 7-year old. I have experience. It's the same way you negotiate with somebody that owns 300 acres of land. You have a conversation with them. You try to understand where they're coming from, and then help them realize how unreasonable they are being in that moment, or whatever it is. And maybe you may find out that there's not an opportunity, because not every seller is a seller. Some sellers are just owners that are testing the market, and having the skill and the ability to recognize that quickly, I think, is also important.
Hmm.
Um, we did a deal that was, I don't know if I could repeat this, but it was an RV park that was terribly underperforming. Um, But the way we made that deal work is the buyer wrote a complete business plan and just kind of had this vision. And I think the vision is important when it comes to buying. He had a vision for doing something with that park that was really hard to see just by looking at what it was. It needed a lot of work. There was a lot of undeveloped land. The business was not being ran well. But he was able to get a combination of financing from a bank, the SBA, and part of his own cash. And it was a really tough deal to put together, but because he had the vision and he was able to communicate the vision to the bank and the lender, they were more open to helping him see it through to the finish line. So, when it comes to buyers buying difficult, this is a good strategy for sellers, right? When it comes to a buyer that you're trying to sell, a deal to, and there's hair on the deal, which every commercial deal right now has headaches, tons of complications on it. But helping the buyer communicate and articulate their vision for the property better, I think that can um, help move things along quite a bit. So having that vision, I think, is critical. And then going back to what you said, making sure it's a win-win for
Hmm.
everyone, finding that motivation. So
Yeah, yeah, and having the right team in place. So like your buyer, having you as support and in their as part of their team, helping them structure whatever this financing is going to look like,
Right.
right? Through your experience of dealing with all of these hairy commercial deals.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well, maybe we should try this, or have you thought about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Always thinking outside the box.
Yeah,
And then finally, number 7, think action.
action.
All this knowledge does nothing for us if we don't execute on the knowledge.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, you can read all the real estate investing books. You can listen to all the podcasts that are out there. Get your degree from YouTube University,
Yeah.
literally. So, but if you're not putting that into action, you're not taking daily action, and we're talking about a little bit more than just scrolling through Zillow, right? We're
Right.
talking about underwriting deals, talking to agents, talking to wholesalers, walking properties. If you're looking to get your first deal or your next deal, you
Hmm.
know, like putting in real measurable action that's going to get you closer to your goals, which is what we talked about earlier, is you have to execute. I was talking to a good friend of mine. I don't know if he's on the call, but we were talking about, right, is having a goal without, actions or something like that, it's just useless if you don't have a way to get there, right?
Yeah.
If you're not taking that daily action.
Yeah. 100%. Put it on your calendar. If you're a deal finder and your plan is to find deals or put deals together, you you gotta put 10,000 hours into any activity if you want to call yourself an expert.
Hmm.
So just start looking at deals, even if they're not something that you're ready to buy or ready to move on. Make it a habit just to look at the market, analyze deals, and crunch numbers.
You know what, Austin? I think everyone on this call, or everyone looking at this on the live or the recording later, I bet you everyone can underwrite, which is analyze one deal a day. All right. That's 30 deals a month. That's
Yeah.
90 deals in 3 months.
Yep.
And by that time, you should be an expert in that particular market that you are underwriting deals in. So where now you can look at a deal on the MLS or a wholesale lead that comes across your email, and you can immediately say to yourself, okay, that's priced too high. Let me underwrite this. And now you can start writing offers once you get all of these other things in place that we've been talking about for the past X amount of months, right?
Yeah.
Financing and all of those other things, But I know everyone on this call, listening, watching, can underwrite one deal a day
Yeah.
and do that for 90 days. It doesn't take long. You'll probably do more than that, and you'll become an expert, and then you get confidence, and now
Yeah.
you're writing offers, and you talked about earlier about becoming an expert. We talked about that just now, becoming an expert, putting in all these hours, 30 minutes a day, an hour a day is a lot, 30 minutes a
Hmm.
day for the next 90 days,
Yeah.
you're going to be a lot better than you were.
Yes. No, that's a great challenge, and I would encourage deal finders and buyers and agents. Start with the numbers. Don't wait until you walk a property to start crunching numbers. That's to me that is the biggest waste of time that buyers and agents do is walking. Well, we gotta look at it first. That's to me that's ignorant, and it shows
Oh,
that
yeah.
you're not dealing with a real investor or professional agent. Start with the numbers. You see a house on the market, it doesn't even matter what it's listed for. You should be able, an expert agent, an experienced investor should be able to look at a house in about less than 5 minutes, be able to say, in perfect condition, this house is worth $375,000.
Mhm.
And then start with that number in mind. Or, or if it's a cash flowing asset, you should say, based on the cap rate, this thing is going to lose this much amount of money the way it's performing at the moment in order to get it at a 9 cap or in order to get it at that 1.25 DSCR, we got to come in $1 million lower than list price. You want to be able to get to that because uh, being able to hit those points right off the bat is going to save a ton of time. So
Mhm.
yeah, think action, put it on your calendar. And here's you got 2 homework assignments. Number 1, analyze a deal a day. It's easy.
That's
Even if
easy.
you don't know what you're doing, just look at the deal and start asking questions. The best way to analyze anything is just to start asking questions. You can figure out how to answer the questions after you've asked the questions. So start with the questions, and then number two, at some point this week, write down your big why and put it on the wall. Put it somewhere where you can see it, and use that as your fuel to stay motivated.
Cool.
So
Yeah,
we
that's awesome. I
we
love
just
that.
got another minute or two. If anybody has any questions or any final thoughts, please leave it in the chat box, or you're welcome to come off mute if you'd like to do that. Albert, you have any questions?
No, I mean, just a couple more thoughts, before we sign out here is I think this is a very methodical approach, what we followed today. We followed the book and it's good for a reason. I love that book. Um, a lot of key points hit here. I think people can look at this later, look at the recording, and take this as almost like a framework for starting your business, starting your real estate investing business. And you mentioned, or we both agreed, underwriting one deal a day should not be hard. And where do you go to get those questions answered? You
Hmm.
can call Austin, right?
Yeah.
Or call the listing agent or befriend another agent. I'm sure Austin would love it if you called him and you sent him about 20 properties that you're looking at. He would love to help you underwrite those properties.
Oh, every single one of them, and I do it
Yeah.
real fast too.
Yeah. But that's and I'm saying this, partially in jest, but there were agents that poured into us, like I mentioned to you before, when we
Hmm.
didn't really know too much of what we were doing before we got connected, like in our mentorship program. I was just watching YouTube, listening to podcasts, what I was telling you about, but there were some specific agents, you were one of them too, Austin, that were sending us deals, helping us run comps, sending those comps, right? And helping us write offers,
Hmm.
right? You have to take action too.
Yeah.
You can't sit back and think the deals are just going to flow to you through your mind. You have to take some action. You have to plant those seeds. And then over time, as you get better doing this, you start writing offers, you start getting properties, you start documenting your process and your journey.
Yeah.
Deals would begin to flow to you.
I love that.
Yeah, I just want to add all that. Yeah.
And speaking of documentation, next week is going to be a really cool episode. We're going to be talking about acquisition criteria, acquisition models with a special guest. My commercial coach, Alicia Shepherd, is
Awesome.
is scheduled to be on the call. So she is phenomenal, and her and I do play music sometimes. Actually, let me invite everyone to come out to 𝗠𝗶𝗆𝗆. We're gonna the last Saturday. I don't know when that is. It's the 27th, I think it is, in September. Alicia and I are actually going to be playing. It's mostly me. I'm sure she'll get up and sing some songs with me, but I'll be playing at 𝗠𝗶𝗆𝗆 in Burton, Texas. So everybody from Austin and everybody from Houston, we all meet Austin from Houston in
Mhm.
Burton. So come on out, brother. Have
Awesome.
a good week. Thank you everybody for being on the call. Appreciate the interaction and the comments. It's fun stuff. Have a great week.
Have a good one. See you Saturday.
Saturday.
Bye.